that you need, and you contract. Telephone, everything is contract, everything. And under the UCC, you do not have to sign a stamped signature or a typed up signature is considered signed under the UCC. So when you get a letter in the mail and it has no signature, or you just have a stamped signature, then it is considered signed. The UCC is very, very important for people to learn about what's going on with their lives, because we are on the contract law, no other law. There is no law at all. In America, the court system is operated under military. When you walk into a courtroom, I don't care which courtroom, if it's a higher court or a lower court, they're under the military. Now you walk in there and you're not a military member, and you're not told that you've been tried under the military. If you mention the Constitution, the judge says it does not apply in my courtroom. But you don't know what he's saying, because you don't know what they're doing to you when you're there.
And all of that language is designed to confuse the hell out of you.
Yes, it's designed under the UCC, and they know. They know what they're doing, and they know how to manipulate you.
So you're saying all judges are very schooled and versed in UCC?
Yes.
They're taken to special training schools in order to learn this?
Yeah, the president appoints all the federal judges in America. And they go to Scottsdale, Arizona and Reno, Nevada to train how to apply this fraud contract in the courtroom.
And in the United Kingdom?
The United Kingdom, majority of the judges here in the United Kingdom are not judges. They're just doing business. They might be a retired lawyer. They're doing business as judge.
And so-called judges in Malawi and in Canada?
All of them, exactly the same system. They're under the UCC.
Okay, I want to talk about some mundane issues. Who owns your car?
The DVLA in England.
In the United Kingdom?
Yes. Department of
Vehicle Licensing
right. Agency.
Okay.
Yes. Well, the DVLA owns the car. It tells you on your registration, you are not the owner. You are just the registered keeper. Now, if you look up registered keeper, it says the person who is responsible for taking care of the vehicle, pay the taxes, pay the license, pay the insurance, and take care of it. But the DVLA could take it from you anytime they feel like. Crush it. They could clamp it.
Because once you've registered it, you've handed it over to the Crown of the state.
That's right, yes.
It's no longer yours.
It's not yours, never.
So again, when you buy a car, you are invited to defraud yourself by then handing it over to the Crown of the state, unwittingly.
Yes, because it's fraud, and they're committing this fraud, and they're not letting you know what they're doing. They make millions, hundreds of millions. The highway belongs to us. They says you have to pay to drive on the road. You don't. The DVLA is just a corporation set up by the Crown. All these corporations are set up by the Crown. The HMRC, the DVLA, they all do the same thing. So if you look carefully at your registration, it tells you right there.
And in the United States of America, it's not the DVLA. What's the equivalent?
It's the Department of Motor Vehicles.
And again, they invite you to register the vehicle to them.
Yes.
They become the owner.
They become the owner. The only reason to have a license when you drive a car is if you're doing taxi service or doing it for business. But if you're driving for your personal use, going to work, going to the market, take your family out, going on vacation, that you don't require a license.
There is no law that requires
No.
you. You can move about the surface of the earth unmolested.
Yes.
That's law.
That is the law. Yes, that is the law. But that's not what they tell you.
But these fictions, these costumes, these people wielding batons and guns and tasers, they've somehow been given license by the government to apprehend you, arbitrarily stop and search you, terrorize you, rip you out of your vehicle. Who gave the traffic enforcement officers the right to stop and apprehend people going about their God-given business?
The corporations that they're under. The police are not constables. And the Queen took an oath to represent the sovereign people, which she's not doing. She's now a corporation herself. So the police is under corporate. They're not constables. Constables are the people who that beats the street and get to know your neighborhood and speak to the people.
Keeps the peace.
Keeps the peace, yes. But they're not constables. They're corporate police. If you call a police officer and you know whose side they're on, if you call a police officer and a bailiff is at your door, they will tell you they cannot come because it's a civil matter. But if the bailiff calls them, they will come. That means that they're not working for you, period.
They're working for the parent corporation.
They're working for the corporation, yes. They're corporate police.
How many of the police do you think know this and understand this distinction?
I think 90%.
Do you really?
I do.
In the United States and in...
And here, yes. Yes, 90% of the police know they're corporate police.
But surely then they understand that they are in serious breach of their foundational oath. And they should thereby surely understand that the Queen of England is in serious breach of her coronation oath, which requires her to intervene if her parliament or government is conducting any cruel and unusual punishments against the people. And it's my understanding that being stopped going about your business in the street and dragged out of your vehicle and beaten with a baton for whatever reason, that to me by definition is cruel and unusual punishment.
Okay, but they're given that permission to do that by the corporation they're in. They are given. If they were not given that permission, they could not have done that. They could not drag you out of your car or molest you or take you to the station for no reason.
But it's not a law that gives them the right. It's a statute. It's a technocratic words on paper, statutes that have allowed them contractually to go ahead and beat the citizenry, right?
Yes.
But it's not lawful.
No, it's not.
It's entirely
not.
unlawful.
It's legal and it's fraudulent activities, and they're being backed up by their corporate headquarters. So you cannot win because there's always somebody there to protect them, and they know that.
So let's drill down into this. A policeman is there and should be able to respond to a living soul doing injury against another living soul. If they witness that, they have every right to intervene. In the same way that you and I can conduct a citizen's arrest. If we see that somebody's being harmed, we should step in and try to intervene. But that's really as far as it goes. They have no business trying to commercialize human beings and penalize us for walking across streets or for not stopping at an amber light or whatever. All of that stuff is just nonsense dreamt up by the corporation.
It is.
Right.
Yes, it is. It's all fraud. Everything they do. And that's why they're giving the opportunity to do this to the sovereign people. Because the sovereign people are ignorant of the Uniform Commercial Code and contract law and how these people operate. They go into the court and they do the same thing. You tell them, don't go. Even if you don't go into the court, they still fine you for the same thing as if you go into the court. But if you go into the court and the police takes you there, then you never win unless you know the law. And they know that you do not know the contract law and that you're under contract and you're walking into a trap. You go in there and the police or whoever is going in there with you, it's always they're the ones who win. You never win. Let's, for instance, say you're driving down the street, you have not hurt anyone, and you got stopped by the police. And the police breathalyze you and says, I have to take you in or I have to fine you. Or both of those. Who did you hurt? Who did you hurt? Who are you going to be paying this money to? You didn't hurt anyone.
There's no victim.
There's no victim. You have to be a victim under the common law.
For there to be a crime.
For there to be a crime.
It's as simple as that.
It is as simple as that, because to give you a ticket or to book you and take you to the station, who did you hurt? There is no one that you have hurt.
That's just a commercial penalty.
It is a commercial penalty.
Okay, so we're getting the picture here that the court systems, the justice system, the policing system, all of these systems are designed to commercialize human beings, harvest them monetarily.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Very, very little of that expenditure, that energy goes towards keeping the peace.
Oh, none of it goes towards keeping the peace. They don't keep the peace. All they do is they create the problem and then they find a solution.
And then sell you that solution.
Yes.
and then penalise you if you don't accept the solution.
That's right.
Right, sounds like a very rigged casino to me, rotten to the core.
It is.
And it seems to me that the average human being would, if they understood this, would utterly reject this system.
Of course.
If they understood it.
Of course.
But of course most people are completely indentured to it,
Yes.
are mind controlled,
Yes.
reading the newspapers, watching the television, and repeating verbatim the bullshit that's taught to them.
Yes.
So the truth is, it seems to me that human beings are not predisposed toward hurting one another. We don't enjoy going to war.
No.
We don't enjoy
No.
hurting each other.
Yes.
In the main, most people get along and just want to get along.
Of course.
But the systems conspire
Yes.
with a model of scarcity economics and drive war and disease and poverty.
Of course. That's the only way they can make money. When this Prime Minister said she's going to give 300 billion to the common market, where do you think she's getting the money? Not from your wages that you pay taxes on. That's a different set of money. She gets it from your trust fund, from your birth certificate. That's where they get the money to build the roads and do everything you could think of.
So they're discharging billions and billions and billions of dollars against our birth bonds without
Yes.
ever disclosing that to us,
Of course.
without there ever being an audit or any accounting for it.
Of course, because nobody's asking.
Right.
And even if you do ask, they give you a hard time to tell you about it.
So if you try to go and discover your own birth bond, let's call it that, and you try to discover the true value, how does one go about doing that?
You apply to the Federal Reserve for it. There's forms that you can fill in, and you can, once you find the bonds and the serial numbers, you can get it from the Federal Reserve because they have it.
And you can then discover the value of your bond?
Of course.
And the average, let's say, 50-year-old in the United States would be worth what?
A 50-year-old in the United States, it could be worth hundreds of millions. But one comment, if you go on the website and you put in your birth certificate number, and it comes up only one, you have hundreds of thousands of people are trading on it.
Right.
That's only one that you know of.
I think what I'm getting at is, what do you think it would be the median value of the average 50-year-old by the time they turn 50 in the United States? What is being traded?
I would say,
in their name?
I would say maybe $1 billion, over $1 billion
Right.
has been traded.
Okay.
Because when I checked, on one of my numbers is over 283,000 people are trading on it. Can you imagine how much money that is?
So when we hear that the US has a debt of $23 trillion or whatever it is, that fictitious money was all pumped out of the air, but effectively it was discharged against the value of
Yes.
the people.
Yes.
Right, so that's where the fiction emerges.
Yes.
And it becomes this huge imbalance that no one quite understands. How on earth do we get that much money?
They just made it up as they go along and tell us what they want to tell us.
Yes, but they'll validate the making up of that money by,
Yes.
on paper, discharging it against the value of
Yes.
the citizenry.
And the citizens' gold, our sovereign gold. We have gold. For every pound that if you weigh 8 pounds at birth, you have 8 pounds of gold set aside for you.
Assigned to you by whom?
By the Crown.
In England?
Yes.
And in the United States?
Yes.
By the Treasury?
Yes.
And
Because the United States is owned by the Crown.
let's okay. So let's say there's 200 odd nations of the world. There's hundreds and hundreds of small island states, but there's about 200 nation states, big nation states. They are all of them a franchise of the Anglo-American Corporation.
Yes.
Let's call it that.
Yes.
And that the Anglo-American Corporation is an extension of the British Crown.
Crown. Yes.
And the British Crown is collateralized by what, or backed by what?
Gold. And by the people. The hundreds of millions of people. The British Empire has just went on the ground. It's still there.
Controls the Bank of International
Yes,
Settlements,
yes.
controls all the reserve banks around
Yes,
the world and
yes,
so on.
yes.
Correct. So at what point do you believe the world sees through this grotesque fiction and then addresses the source code and then writes it?
I think if people get to know what the UCC and the contract law does, and your straw man is your main problem. Once you can control your straw man, and it is yours and not theirs anymore,